Before we begin, I want to ask you something. Have you ever felt exhausted even when nothing physically difficult happened that day? Not tired in your body, tired in your soul, tired of overthinking, tired of chasing approval, tired of caring too much, tired of carrying wounds that nobody can see? If that feels familiar, then this video is for you. Because most people spend their entire lives trying to change their circumstances while never realizing that the real prison exists inside their own mind. They seek validation from people who cannot give it. They hold on to pain that should have been released years ago. They keep feeding fears, attachments, and old stories until they no longer recognize themselves. And slowly, without noticing, they lose their peace. But what if the life you want is not waiting somewhere in the future? What if the strongest version of yourself already exists within you, buried beneath fear, buried beneath attachment, buried beneath the endless need to be accepted by everyone around you? Buddhism teaches that true transformation does not happen when the world changes. It happens when you change. It happens when you stop chasing, stop proving, stop performing, and finally return to yourself. In this video, you will discover the 6 powerful steps of the Inner Buddha Code, a path to detach from what drains your soul, heal the wounds that still control you, and rebuild yourself so deeply that nothing outside of you can easily shake your peace again. Because the strongest transformation is not loud. It does not happen in front of an audience. It happens in silence. And by the end of this video, you may realize that this silent season of your life is not breaking you. It is building you. You cannot rebuild yourself while still seeking validation from the world. One of the deepest traps of modern life is the desire to be approved by everyone. Most people never realize how much of their life is controlled by this need. They choose words based on how others will react. They make decisions based on how others will judge them. They hide parts of themselves because they fear rejection. Slowly, without noticing, they stop living from their own truth. They begin living from other people's expectations. Think about how much energy people spend trying to be accepted, trying to be understood, trying to be appreciated, trying to be chosen, trying to be liked, trying to be enough. And yet, no matter how much they give, it never feels complete. Because validation is a hunger that cannot be satisfied from the outside. The more you seek it, the more dependent you become on it. You start measuring your worth through reactions, through attention, through approval, through recognition, through people's opinions. A compliment can make your day. A criticism can ruin your week. One person's approval makes you feel valuable. One person's rejection makes you question everything about yourself. Without realizing it, you hand other people the power to decide how you feel about your own life. And this is where suffering quietly begins. Not because people are judging you. People will always have opinions. The suffering begins because you start believing those opinions matter more than your own inner truth. Many people spend years wearing masks they were never meant to wear. They become the version of themselves that receives the most approval. They laugh when they are hurting. They stay quiet when something feels wrong. They say yes when every part of them wants to say no. They follow paths they never truly wanted because they fear disappointing others. From the outside, everything looks fine. People praise them. People accept them. People admire them. But deep inside, something feels empty because a person can gain the world's approval and still lose themselves in the process. And that loss creates a pain that is difficult to explain. You wake up feeling disconnected. You feel tired, even when nothing is physically wrong. You feel like you are playing a role instead of living your life. You begin wondering why happiness never lasts. The reason is simple. Your soul knows when you are abandoning yourself. Your heart knows when you are living for everyone except yourself. Buddhism teaches that suffering begins whenever your peace depends on something outside your control. And nothing is more outside your control than what other people think. You cannot control their opinions. You cannot control their expectations. You cannot control their judgments. You cannot control whether they understand your heart or completely misunderstand your intentions. No matter how kind you are, someone will misunderstand you. No matter how honest you are, someone will doubt you. No matter how much you sacrifice, Someone will say it was not enough. No matter how carefully you explain yourself, some people will choose not to understand. This is why seeking approval from everyone is a battle you can never win. There is always another person to impress, another expectation to meet, another opinion to worry about, another standard to chase, and the more you chase it, the further you move away from yourself. One day, however, something begins to change. Usually, it happens during a quiet season of life, a season when you feel exhausted, a season when you stop trying so hard, a season when you realize that constantly proving your worth is draining your spirit. You begin asking different questions. Instead of asking, "Do they like me?" you ask, "Do I like the person I am becoming?" Instead of asking, "What will people think?" you ask, "What feels true to my heart?" Instead of asking, "How can I make everyone happy?" you ask, "Why have I forgotten myself in the process?" Those questions are powerful because they shift your attention inward, and every real transformation begins the moment your attention turns inward, not outward. You stop performing, you stop pretending, you stop editing your personality just to fit into places where you do not belong. You stop chasing acceptance from people who cannot even accept themselves. You begin to understand that your value was never something others could give you, and if they never gave it to you, they cannot take it away either. This realization feels like freedom. For the first time, you stop needing applause to feel worthy. You stop needing attention to feel important. You stop needing constant reassurance to feel secure. You begin standing on your own foundation. You begin trusting your own voice. You begin respecting your own path. And that is where true rebuilding begins. Not when the world finally approves of you. Not when everyone understands you. Not when everyone agrees with your choices. True rebuilding begins when you no longer need those things. It begins when you sit alone in silence and finally realize that your worth has never depended on anyone else's opinion. It begins when you understand that peace is more valuable than approval, that authenticity is more valuable than popularity, that self-respect is more valuable than being liked by everyone. And from that moment forward, your life starts to change, because you are no longer living to be accepted. You are living to be true, and there is no greater freedom than that. That is the first step of the inner Buddha code, not seeking the world's validation, but awakening to your own. Detachment starts when you refuse to feed the things that drain your soul. One of the greatest misunderstandings about detachment is that people think it means not caring. They imagine becoming cold, emotionless, distant, uninterested. But true detachment is none of those things. Detachment is not the absence of love. It is the absence of unhealthy attachment. It is the wisdom to know the difference between what nourishes your spirit and what slowly destroys it. Many people spend years feeding the very things that are causing their suffering. They keep replaying painful memories. They keep revisiting old wounds. They keep checking on people who have already walked away. They keep returning to situations that have repeatedly broken their peace, and then they wonder why they cannot heal. Imagine trying to heal a wound while scratching it every single day. No matter how much time passes, the wound never closes, not because healing is impossible, but because you keep reopening it. This is exactly what many people do emotionally. They say they want peace, but every day they feed their anxiety. They say they want freedom, but every day they feed their attachments. They say they want to move forward, but every day they return to the same thoughts, the same memories, and the same emotional patterns that keep them trapped. Buddhism teaches that whatever you feed grows stronger. If you feed anger, anger grows. If you feed fear, fear grows. If you feed resentment, resentment grows. If you feed peace, peace grows. If you feed awareness, awareness grows. If you feed wisdom, wisdom grows. Your mind becomes whatever you repeatedly nourish. That is why detachment is not something that happens overnight. It begins with small decisions, very small decisions. The decision not to check that message again, the decision not to stalk someone's profile, The decision not to replay the argument for the 100th time, the decision not to keep imagining conversations that will never happen, the decision not to seek closure from people who are incapable of giving it. At first, these choices feel uncomfortable. Your mind resists them. Your emotions resist them. Part of you wants to go back. Part of you wants to keep holding on. Part of you believes that if you think about it long enough, somehow things will change, but they rarely do, because overthinking is not healing. Obsessing is not healing. Replaying the past is not healing. Worrying is not healing. Healing begins when you stop feeding what hurts you. Think about how many hours people spend suffering over things they cannot control. Someone's opinion, someone's decision, someone's rejection, someone's behavior, someone's absence. Yet no amount of thinking can control another person. No amount of worrying can change the past. No amount of attachment can force life to unfold according to your plans. The harder you cling, the more exhausted you become. The tighter you hold, the more pain you create. It is like trying to hold water in a closed fist. The tighter you squeeze, the more slips away. Life works the same way. People come, people go. Situations change, seasons end. Nothing remains exactly as it is. The Buddha taught that one of the deepest causes of suffering is our refusal to accept this truth. We want things to stay. We want people to stay. We want feelings to stay. We want certainty in a world that is constantly changing. And because of this, we suffer. Not because change happens, but because we resist it. Detachment is the moment you stop fighting reality. It is the moment you stop demanding that life obey your expectations. It is the moment you stop saying, "This should not have happened," and begin asking, "What is this experience trying to teach me?" That question changes everything, because now your focus shifts from control to growth, from resistance to understanding, from suffering to wisdom. You begin seeing every attachment clearly. You begin noticing how much energy you give away every day. You begin realizing how many things occupy your mind without improving your life. And once you see this, you cannot unsee it. You start protecting your attention. You start protecting your peace. You start protecting your energy, because you finally understand something most people never learn. Your attention is your life. Whatever receives your attention receives your energy, and whatever receives your energy becomes stronger. So if you constantly feed fear, fear will dominate your life. If you constantly feed insecurity, insecurity will dominate your life. If you constantly feed old pain will continue controlling your future. But if you feed peace, peace grows. If you feed self-respect, self-respect grows. If you feed awareness, awareness grows. This is where true transformation begins. Not when life changes, but when you change what you feed, because every day you are watering something. Every thought, every habit, every reaction, every emotional pattern. The question is simple. Are you watering the garden of your peace, or are you watering the weeds of your suffering? Most people never ask themselves this question. They simply continue feeding whatever is loudest, whatever is most familiar, whatever is most emotionally intense. But wisdom teaches a different path. Feed what heals you. Starve what destroys you. Feed what strengthens your spirit. Starve what weakens your soul. Feed what brings clarity. Starve what creates confusion. Feed what helps you grow. Starve what keeps you stuck. This is not easy. Some days you will feel tempted to go back. Some days old attachments will call your name. Some days your mind will try to convince you that the past was better than it really was. But every time you choose peace over attachment, you become stronger. Every time you choose awareness over reaction, you become wiser. Every time you choose growth over obsession, you become freer. And eventually something beautiful happens. The things that once controlled you lose their power. The thoughts that once consumed you become quieter. The people who once occupied your mind all day become distant memories. The situations that once stole your peace no longer shake your spirit, not because they changed, but because you changed. You stopped feeding them. You stopped giving them your energy. You stopped allowing them to live rent-free inside your mind. And that is the beginning of real freedom. That is the second step of the inner Buddha code. The moment you stop feeding what drains your soul, you create space for something far greater to grow. Peace. The wounds you avoid today become the chains that hold you tomorrow. One of the hardest truths to accept is that what you refuse to face today will often control your life tomorrow. Most people believe pain disappears when it is ignored. They believe that if they stay busy enough, distracted enough, or strong enough, eventually the hurt will fade away on its own. But pain does not disappear simply because you look away from it. It hides, it waits, it settles quietly beneath the surface of your life. And then, when you least expect it, it begins influencing everything. The way you think, the way you love, the way you trust, the way you react, the way you see yourself. Many people spend years trying to escape their wounds. They bury themselves in work. They fill every moment with noise. They chase success. They chase relationships. They chase distractions. Anything to avoid sitting alone with what hurts. But no matter how far they run, the wound runs with them, because the real battle is not outside of them. The real battle is within. Imagine carrying a heavy stone in your backpack every day. At first, you barely notice it, but over time, it begins affecting everything. You walk slower. You become tired more easily. You lose energy. You feel exhausted without understanding why. Emotional wounds work the same way. A painful rejection, a betrayal, a broken relationship, a childhood memory, a humiliation, a disappointment, an abandonment, a moment when you felt unloved, a moment when you felt invisible, a moment when you believed you were not enough. These experiences may have happened years ago, yet they continue shaping your present life, not because they are still happening, but because the wound never fully healed. Many people think their problem is the present, but often the present is simply revealing an old wound that never received attention. Someone ignores your message. Suddenly you feel deeply rejected. Someone disagrees with you. Suddenly you feel attacked. Someone leaves your life. Suddenly old abandonment fears return. The situation itself may be small, but the pain feels enormous. Why? Because the wound is older than the moment. The event only touched what was already there. This is why Buddhism places such importance on awareness. Awareness allows you to see the difference between what is happening now and what happened long ago. Without awareness, every old wound continues controlling your future. Without awareness, you keep repeating the same emotional cycles, the same fears, the same reactions, the same suffering, again and again. Many people spend their entire lives trapped in patterns they never understand. They keep attracting similar relationships. They keep making similar mistakes. They keep experiencing similar disappointments. And they wonder why life never changes. Life cannot change while unconscious wounds remain in control. The wound becomes the invisible author of your decisions, the invisible voice inside your mind, the invisible force guiding your choices. You may think you are choosing freely, but often you are simply protecting old pain. You avoid risks because you fear failure. You avoid vulnerability because you fear rejection. You avoid love because you fear heartbreak. You avoid speaking honestly because you fear judgment. You avoid your dreams because you fear disappointment. Little by little, the wound begins shrinking your life, not because it wants to hurt you, but because it wants to protect you. And this is what makes healing so important. Many wounds begin as protection. A child who was criticized learns to stay quiet. A person who was betrayed learns not to trust. A person who was abandoned learns not to depend on others. A person who was hurt learns to build walls. At first, these strategies seem helpful. They protect you from further pain. But eventually the protection becomes the prison. The walls that once kept pain out begin keeping life out too. The defenses that once protected your heart begin preventing connection. The fear that once kept you safe begins stopping your growth. This is when suffering becomes a chain, not because of the original wound, but because of the life built around avoiding it. The Buddha taught that freedom comes through seeing clearly, and seeing clearly requires courage. The courage to stop running, the courage to stop distracting yourself, the courage to sit quietly and ask difficult questions. What am I still carrying? What pain am I avoiding? What fear continues controlling my decisions? What story about myself did this wound create? Perhaps somewhere deep inside you still believe you are not enough. Perhaps you still believe you must earn love. Perhaps you still believe people always leave. Perhaps you still believe your worth depends on achievement. Perhaps you still believe you must be perfect to be accepted. These beliefs often feel like truth, but they are not truth. They are wounds speaking, and wounds are not reliable teachers. A wound will tell you to hide. Wisdom will tell you to grow. A wound will tell you to fear. Wisdom will tell you to trust. A wound will tell you to stay small. Wisdom will tell you to become who you were meant to be. The moment you recognize this difference, healing begins. Not because the wound disappears immediately, but because you stop identifying with it. You begin realizing something powerful. You are not your pain. You are not your past. You are not your worst experience. You are not the rejection. You are not the failure. You are not the betrayal. You are not the heartbreak. Those things happen to you, but they are not you. There is a deeper part of you beneath every wound, a quieter part, a wiser part, a stronger part, the part Buddhism calls awareness, the observer behind every thought, the stillness beneath every storm, the light that remains even after darkness has visited your life. And the more you connect with that deeper self, the less power your wounds have over you. You stop reacting automatically. You stop letting old fears control new opportunities. You stop carrying yesterday into every tomorrow. The wound may still exist, but it no longer controls the direction of your life. This is the beginning of true liberation, not pretending the wound never happened, not denying the pain, not forcing yourself to move on, but facing it with honesty, meeting it with compassion, understanding it with wisdom, and finally releasing its control over your future. Because every wound you refuse to face becomes a chain, but every wound you heal becomes a source of strength. And one day you will look back and realize something beautiful. The pain that almost broke you became the doorway to your awakening. The struggle that once felt like your greatest burden became your greatest teacher, and the wound you feared confronting became the very place where your transformation began. That is the third step of the inner Buddha code. Face the wound, free the soul, and reclaim the future that fear almost stole from you. Your silence becomes sacred when it is used for healing instead of revenge. One of the most powerful moments in a person's life is the moment they stop trying to prove their pain to people who caused it. Most people do not realize how much energy they spend wanting others to understand what they went through. They want people to see their wounds. They want people to acknowledge their suffering. They want apologies. They want explanations. They want justice. And sometimes they want something even deeper. They want the people who hurt them to finally realize what they lost. This desire is understandable. When someone breaks your trust, part of you wants them to feel the weight of their actions. When someone walks away, part of you wants them to miss you. When someone underestimates you, part of you wants to prove them wrong. When someone causes pain, part of you wants them to experience the same pain. These feelings are human. Almost everyone experiences them, but Buddhism teaches something that most people never learn. As long as your healing depends on another person's realization, your freedom remains in their hands. Think about that carefully. If your peace depends on someone apologizing, they still control your peace. If your happiness depends on someone regretting their choices, they still control your happiness. If your healing depends on someone finally understanding you, they still control your healing. Many people believe they have moved on, but in reality, they are still emotionally tied to the very thing they claim to have left behind. Their body may have moved forward, but their mind remains trapped in the past. Every day they replay old conversations. Every day they imagine future confrontations. Every day they fantasize about proving something. And without realizing it, they continue carrying the person they are trying to forget. This is why true healing requires a different path, a quieter path, a deeper path, a sacred path, the path of silence, not the silence of resentment, not the silence of emotional withdrawal, not the silence that says, "I hope they suffer," but the silence that says, "I choose my peace over this battle." There is a profound difference between those two forms of silence. One keeps you trapped, the other sets you free. Many people become silent because they are angry, but anger eventually becomes another prison. They stop speaking, but inside they continue arguing. They stop reaching out, but inside they continue waiting. They stop reacting outwardly, but internally they are still fighting the same war every day. That is not peace. That is silent suffering. True healing begins when the war inside finally ends. And that ending rarely happens through revenge, because revenge keeps your attention focused on the person who hurt you. Your mind remains connected to them. Your emotions remain connected to them. Your energy remains connected to them. You may think you are hurting them by holding on to resentment, but often you are the one carrying the weight. The Buddha taught that holding on to anger is like holding a burning coal with the intention of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned first. The longer you carry resentment, the heavier it becomes. The longer you carry bitterness, the more space it occupies within your heart, and eventually bitterness begins changing you. You become suspicious, guarded, defensive. You stop trusting. You stop opening your heart. You stop believing in people, not because everyone is dangerous, but because one wound convinced you that everyone is. This is why healing matters so deeply. Healing protects your future from becoming a prisoner of your past. The goal is not to pretend nothing happened. The goal is not to excuse harmful behavior. The goal is not to allow people back into your life who repeatedly hurt you. The goal is something far more powerful. The goal is to free yourself. Because freedom is not found in winning the argument. Freedom is not found in proving someone wrong. Freedom is not found in making others regret losing you. Freedom is found when their choices no longer determine your emotional state. Imagine how much energy becomes available when you stop trying to control what others think. Imagine how much peace becomes possible when you stop needing validation from those who cannot give it. Imagine how much freedom becomes available when you stop carrying old battles into every new day. This is where silence becomes sacred. Silence gives you space to hear your own wisdom again. For years, many people live surrounded by noise, other people's opinions, other people's expectations, other people's judgments, other people's drama, other people's projections. Eventually, they forget the sound of their own inner voice. But when silence enters your life, something remarkable begins to happen. At first, it feels uncomfortable. You miss the distraction. You miss the emotional intensity. You miss the familiar chaos. But gradually the mind begins to settle. The emotional storms become quieter. The endless mental conversations begin to fade. And beneath all that noise, something beautiful appears. Clarity. You begin seeing situations differently. You begin understanding that not every battle deserves your energy. Not every misunderstanding requires an explanation. Not every criticism requires a response. Not every person deserves access to your peace. This realization changes everything. Because wisdom is not learning how to win every conflict. Wisdom is learning which conflicts are not worth entering. Maturity is not proving your value to everyone. Maturity is recognizing your value without needing anyone's approval. Strength is not forcing people to understand your worth. Strength is quietly building a life that reflects it. And this is why the strongest transformations often happen in silence. Nobody sees the nights you spend healing. Nobody sees the thoughts you choose not to follow. Nobody sees the anger you choose not to express. Nobody sees the battles you win within yourself. The world sees the result, but it never sees the process. It never sees the countless moments where you chose growth over revenge, peace over bitterness, compassion over resentment, wisdom over reaction. And these invisible choices slowly transform you. They make your spirit lighter, your heart softer, your mind clearer, your energy calmer. You stop needing to prove anything. You stop needing to explain everything. You stop needing to carry what no longer belongs to you. And perhaps the most beautiful part of all is this: the people who hurt you may never understand what they did. They may never apologize. They may never change. They may never recognize your value. But your healing no longer depends on any of that, because your peace has finally become independent. It no longer belongs to them. It belongs to you, and that is true freedom. That is sacred silence. Not silence used to punish, not silence used to manipulate, not silence used to make someone regret losing you, but silence used to rebuild your soul. Silence used to reconnect with your true self. Silence used to create inner peace, so deep that no external event can easily disturb it. That is the fourth step of the inner Buddha code. Turn your silence into healing. Turn your healing into wisdom, and turn your wisdom into a peace that no one can take away. The strongest version of you is forged in private, not in public. One of the greatest illusions of modern life is the belief that transformation happens in public. People see someone's confidence and assume it appeared overnight. They see someone's success and assume it happened easily. They see someone's peace and assume they were simply born that way. But they never see the years of quiet struggle that came before it. They never see the lonely nights, the difficult decisions, the tears nobody witnessed, the habits nobody applauded, the battles nobody knew existed. They only see the finished chapter. They never see the pages that were written in silence. This is why so many people become discouraged. They compare their behind-the-scenes struggles to other people's highlight reels. They look at someone who appears strong and wonder why they still feel broken. They look at someone who seems confident and wonder why they still doubt themselves. They look at someone who appears peaceful and wonder why their own mind still feels restless. What they fail to realize is that every strong person was once weak. Every peaceful person was once overwhelmed. Every wise person was once confused. Every healed person was once wounded. The difference is not that they avoided suffering. The difference is that they used their suffering differently. They allowed it to shape them instead of destroy them. Buddhism teaches that growth is an inner process before it ever becomes an outer reality. A tree spends years developing its roots before it rises toward the sky. The deeper the roots, the stronger the tree. Human transformation works the same way. Before your life changes externally, something must change internally. Before confidence appears, self-respect must grow. Before peace appears, awareness must grow. Before wisdom appears, understanding must grow. Before freedom appears, attachment must be released. And all of these things happen in private. Nobody sees you choosing discipline when laziness feels easier. Nobody sees you choosing peace when anger feels justified. Nobody sees you choosing healing when bitterness feels tempting. Nobody sees you choosing growth when staying the same feels comfortable. But those moments matter. In fact, those moments matter more than most people realize, because your life is not built by a few dramatic decisions. It is built by thousands of small choices, repeated over time. A person does not become strong in a single day. They become strong one decision at a time, one difficult choice at a time, one act of self-respect at a time, one moment of awareness at a time. Many people are waiting for a breakthrough, but what they really need is consistency. They believe their life will change when something extraordinary happens. But transformation usually begins through ordinary actions repeated consistently, getting up when you do not feel motivated, keeping a promise to yourself, practicing patience, protecting your peace, choosing awareness over reaction, choosing growth over comfort, again and again, day after day, month after month. The problem is that these actions rarely feel impressive. They are quiet, simple, unnoticed, and because they are unnoticed, many people underestimate their power. Yet it is these invisible actions that create visible results. Consider a mountain. From a distance, it appears powerful and unshakable. But the mountain was not created in a single moment. It was shaped slowly, patiently. Over countless years, transformation follows the same law. Your character is shaped by what you repeatedly do when nobody is watching. Not when people are praising you, not when people are encouraging you, not when people are supporting you, but when you are alone. Because solitude reveals your true character. When nobody is watching, there is no performance, no audience, no approval, no validation, only you and your choices. And those choices reveal who you are becoming. Many people spend years trying to look strong, but true strength is not about appearance. It is about consistency. It is about keeping your values even when nobody would know if you abandoned them. It is about choosing integrity when shortcuts are available. It is about choosing patience when frustration takes over. It is about choosing kindness when bitterness feels easier. It is about choosing wisdom when the ego wants revenge. These are the private victories that create public transformation. Unfortunately, most people never witness these victories. They only see the final result. And because of that, they underestimate the cost of becoming your highest self. There will be days when progress feels invisible, days when growth feels slow, days when nothing seems to be changing, days when you question whether your efforts matter at all. These moments are part of the process. Every person who has ever transformed faced these moments. The difference is that they continued anyway. They trusted the process before they could see the results. They understood that growth often happens beneath the surface, just as a seed develops underground before it breaks through the soil. Personal transformation develops internally before it becomes visible externally. For a long time, nothing appears to happen. Then one day, everything begins to change. People suddenly notice your confidence, your peace, your maturity, your wisdom, your strength, and they assume it happened quickly. But you know the truth. You know about the nights nobody saw, the struggles nobody understood, the sacrifices nobody noticed, the healing nobody applauded, the discipline nobody celebrated. You know that your transformation was built in silence. And because it was built in silence, it becomes unshakable. This is what makes private growth so powerful. Anything built for attention collapses when attention disappears. Anything built for approval collapses when approval disappears. Anything built for validation collapses when validation disappears. But what is built in silence becomes independent. It no longer depends on external conditions. It becomes part of who you are. This is why the strongest version of yourself is never created in public. It is created in the quiet moments when nobody knows what you are overcoming, when nobody knows how hard you are trying, when nobody knows how much healing is taking place inside your heart, when nobody knows how many old habits you are leaving behind, when nobody knows how many battles you have already won. Those victories may be invisible, but they are real, and eventually they change everything. One day you will wake up and realize that the person who once needed validation no longer does. The person who once feared being alone now enjoys solitude. The person who once reacted emotionally now responds with wisdom. The person who once chased peace everywhere finally found it within. And the beautiful part is that nobody will fully understand how it happened, because your greatest transformation happened where all true transformation begins, in silence. That is the fifth step of the inner Buddha code. Stop seeking recognition for your growth. Trust the process. Honor the private work. And remember that the strongest version of you is being forged every day, even when nobody can see it. Because what is built in silence becomes powerful beyond measure. The moment you return to yourself, your entire life begins to change. After all the pain, after all the confusion, after all the disappointments, after all the lessons, there comes a moment that changes everything. Not because the world changes, not because people suddenly treat you differently, not because life becomes perfect, but because you finally return to yourself. This may be the most important transformation a human being can experience. Because the truth is, most people do not lose their peace overnight. They lose it little by little, one compromise at a time, one disappointment at a time, one attachment at a time, one fear at a time, until one day they look in the mirror and barely recognize the person staring back at them. They have spent so much time becoming what others wanted that they forgot who they truly are. They have spent so much time chasing approval that they forgot their own value. They have spent so much time seeking happiness outside themselves that they lost connection with the peace already within them. This is why so many people feel exhausted, not because life is difficult, but because they are carrying a version of themselves that was never authentic. A version built from expectations, a version built from fear, a version built from comparison, a version built from survival, and carrying that version requires enormous energy. Every day becomes a performance. Every conversation becomes a calculation. Every decision becomes a battle between what you truly want and what others expect from you. Over time, the soul becomes tired, not physically tired, spiritually tired, emotionally tired, deeply tired. The kind of tiredness that sleep cannot fix. The kind of tiredness that success cannot fix. The kind of tiredness that attention cannot fix. Because the problem is not external. The problem is separation from yourself. Buddhism teaches that suffering often begins when we become disconnected from our true nature. We become lost in identities, lost in labels, lost in fears, lost in desires, lost in endless mental noise. And eventually we forget that, beneath all of these temporary things, there is something far deeper, a quiet awareness, a peaceful presence, a wiser self that has always existed beneath the chaos. The journey of transformation is not really about becoming someone new. It is about remembering who you were before the world convinced you that you were not enough. Think about that for a moment. Before the criticism, before the rejection, before the failures, before the heartbreaks, before the disappointments, there was a version of you that was naturally alive, curious, present, open, free. That version still exists. It has not disappeared. It has simply been buried beneath years of conditioning, buried beneath fears, buried beneath old wounds, buried beneath the endless voices telling you who you should be. This is why silence becomes so important, because silence removes the noise. And when the noise disappears, you begin hearing something you have not heard in a very long time. Yourself. Not the fearful self, not the wounded self, not the insecure self, but the deeper self, the observing self, the peaceful self, the self that exists beyond every temporary struggle. At first, reconnecting with yourself can feel unfamiliar. Many people have spent so long chasing external validation that being alone feels uncomfortable. Many people have spent so long distracting themselves that stillness feels strange. Many people have spent so long seeking answers from others that listening to their own wisdom feels impossible. But slowly, something begins to change. You stop asking everyone else what you should do. You begin trusting your own awareness. You stop chasing every opportunity for approval. You begin choosing what aligns with your values. You stop comparing your journey to everyone else's. You begin appreciating your own path. You stop forcing life to unfold according to your plans. You begin working with life instead of fighting against it. And this shift changes everything, because once you reconnect with yourself, your priorities change. Things that once seemed important no longer matter as much. Arguments lose their appeal. Drama loses its attraction. Competition loses its power. The need to prove yourself begins to disappear, not because you have given up, but because you finally understand your worth. A person who knows their worth does not need to constantly defend it. A person who knows their value does not need constant reassurance. A person who knows who they are does not need everyone's approval. This is where true confidence is born, not from achievements, not from popularity, not from success, but from self-knowledge, from understanding yourself deeply enough that external opinions no longer control your inner state. This kind of confidence is different. It is quiet, calm, stable. It does not need attention. It does not need recognition. It simply exists. And perhaps this is why some people seem peaceful no matter what happens around them. It is not because their lives are free from problems. It is because they have stopped abandoning themselves whenever problems appear. They remain connected to their center, connected to their awareness, connected to their values, connected to their truth. This connection becomes their anchor. Storms still come, difficulties still arise, people still disappoint them, life still changes unexpectedly. But they no longer lose themselves in the process. And that is real freedom. Not freedom from pain, not freedom from uncertainty, not freedom from challenges, but freedom from being controlled by them, freedom from constantly reacting, freedom from living in fear, freedom from needing the world to behave a certain way before you can be at peace. The Buddha taught that peace is not found by controlling life. Peace is found by understanding life, by accepting its impermanence, by accepting its changes, by accepting its uncertainties, and by remaining present through it all. When you truly understand this, something beautiful happens. You stop chasing happiness and start creating peace. You stop searching for yourself and start remembering yourself. You stop waiting for life to begin and realize that life has been here all along, waiting for you to fully arrive. This is the final transformation. The return home, the return to your center, the return to your authentic self, the return to the quiet wisdom that has always existed within you. And when this happens, your entire life begins to change. Not because the outside world becomes different, but because you become different. You see differently, you think differently, you respond differently, you live differently, you love differently. You walk through life with a calm strength that cannot be shaken by every passing storm. And perhaps that is the deepest lesson of all. The strongest transformation does not happen when you gain something. It happens when you return to what was always there, the peace, the wisdom, the awareness, the strength, the self you never truly lost. That is the sixth and final step of the inner Buddha code. Return to yourself, trust yourself, know yourself. Because the moment you return to yourself, your entire life begins to change, and from that moment forward, you no longer search for peace, you become it. If there is one thing I hope you remember from this journey, it is this: your transformation was never supposed to be loud. It was never supposed to impress everyone. It was never supposed to make the world stop and applaud. The most important transformation of your life happens in places nobody can see, in the quiet decisions, in the lonely mornings, in the moments when you choose peace over chaos, in the moments when you choose healing over bitterness, in the moments when you choose yourself instead of abandoning yourself again. Remember, every lesson you heard today points to the same truth. You cannot rebuild yourself while seeking validation from the world. You cannot find peace while feeding what drains your soul. You cannot become free while running from your wounds. You cannot heal while carrying revenge in your heart. You cannot discover your strength if you fear the silence where it is forged. And you cannot change your life until you return to the person you truly are. The beautiful thing is that you do not need to become someone else. You do not need to be smarter. You do not need to be richer. You do not need to be more successful. You do not need the world's approval. You simply need the courage to return to yourself, because everything you have been searching for has been quietly waiting within you all along. The peace, the wisdom, the strength, the clarity, the freedom. It was never outside of you. It was hidden beneath fear, hidden beneath attachment, hidden beneath the noise of the world. And now, perhaps for the first time, you can see it. So as you leave this video, stop worrying about how far you still have to go. Instead, take a moment to recognize how far you have already come. You survived things that once felt impossible. You learned lessons that pain had to teach. You carried burdens that made you stronger. And despite everything, you are still here, still growing, still healing, still becoming. Trust that process. Trust your journey. Trust the silence, because one day you will look back and realize that this quiet season was not breaking you. It was building you. It was creating a version of you so strong, so peaceful, and so deeply rooted that nothing outside of you could easily shake it again. And that is the true meaning of transformation. Not becoming someone new, but finally becoming who you were always meant to be. If this message spoke to something deep inside you, take a moment and write these words in the comments. I choose peace over approval. That single sentence may be the beginning of a completely different chapter in your life. And if you are committed to mastering your mind, protecting your peace, and awakening the strongest version of yourself, subscribe to the Inner Buddha Code and join this journey with us. Because here, we are not chasing temporary motivation. We are building lasting wisdom, one lesson, one realization, one transformation at a time. Until next time, stay present, stay aware, and remember, the strongest transformation happens in silence.